crooked his finger at me, Robert Charles Moffat, a newlywed of only 1 year, and said, "Come join us." At that time, I was a sophomore at the Shenandoah Conservatory of Music, but Uncle Sam really didn't care, so into the Army I went. I had my basic training for 6 months with the 6th Armored Division, the Super 6th, and was promoted to Reconnaissance Sergeant. I then applied for and was accepted to the Officers Candidate School at Fort Knox, Kentucky, the Armor School. Upon graduating from there in 1942, I was commissioned as a 2nd Lieutenant, Army Branch, and sent to Camp Polk, Louisiana. There I was assigned to the 41st Cavalry Reconnaissance Squadron of the 11th Armored Division, the Thunderbolts. After the Louisiana, Texas, and California maneuvers of 1942, we of the 11th Armored Division were sent to Europe. The 41st Squadron arrived in England on the troop ship Hermitage in October of 1944. That was just in time for the Battle of the Bulge, the major German offensive campaign launched through the densely forested Ardennes forest region of Wallonia, Belgium. The 41st Cav crossed to Normandy on the 19th of December and was in close contact with the enemy on Christmas Eve, 1944. For this, I received, it was in the Battle of the Bulge that I received a small piece of shrapnel in my chest. For this, I received the Purple Heart. Now, when I get a chest x-ray, I'm asked, "What is this thing in your chest?" Following the Ardennes campaign, following 21 days of intense combat, we of the 41st Cav led the 11th Armored Division on the Rhineland campaign and the Central European campaign, through Belgium, Luxembourg, Germany, and on into Austria. Being constantly in the lead, we captured hundreds of German Army and SS officers and soldiers. I was honored with a Bronze Star for meritorious service. Following the end of hostilities, we were filtered through the Army network and sent to the USA. Upon discharge, I headed home, greeted by my wife and our 18-month-old baby, Robert Paul. I found a job at the Pittsburgh Steel Company in Monson, Pennsylvania. While working at the steel mill, I received a call from an old high school buddy, Captain Nicholas Kafkalis, later Major General Kafkalis, commanding the 28th Infantry Division, Pennsylvania National Guard, and retiring as Adjutant General of the state of Pennsylvania. Captain Kafkalis told me they really needed officers. He asked me to join Company D, Heavy Weapons Company, 110th Infantry Battalion, 28th Infantry Division, Pennsylvania National Guard. I said, "I can't do that. I have way too many responsibilities. An infant baby, a new job." To this, my buddy said, "We'll pay you." And I said, "I'll be down tomorrow morning to sign up." The Korean War started in the interim, and the 28th Infantry Division was federalized into service in 1950 and sent to Germany in 1952. Our mission was to block the Russians at all costs. At that time, I was the Battalion S3 Plans, Training, and Operations Officer, in a position calling for an infantry major. After several months in Germany, the Korean War ended and we were sent home. I went back to work in the steel mill. However, I immediately became aware that things had changed. It became obvious that the Steelworkers Union had a huge impact on the steel mill, and it was not all good. The mill was going downhill. I began researching for a job. It was then that my brother, who lived in Ripley, New York, phoned me and said a factory there was looking for someone. I immediately drove to Ripley, New York, applied for the job, was hired on the spot as the plant manager at Lanseth Cherry and Fruit Company in Ripley, New York. While living in Ripley, I became heavily involved in the Methodist Church as a choir director and church school superintendent. It was during this church experience that I was called into the ministry. I then made the decision to depart Ripley and go into the ministry. I applied for and was accepted to Drew Theological Seminary in Madison, New Jersey. After graduating from seminary, I was appointed to the South Meriden Methodist Church in Connecticut. After serving in this church for about a year, I received a call from the commanding officer of the 275th Infantry, Connecticut National Guard in New Haven, to be battalion chaplain. At that time, there were no Protestant chaplains in the Connecticut National Guard, So I accepted the call, and for the next 4 years, spent 2 weeks each summer with the battalion at their summer camp. I was then shifted around to 4 different units to follow progression in military rank. After 14 years, I was in a slot calling for the rank of colonel, but I had to have attended the Army Command and General Staff College. That took a lot of my time. However, I was able to attend this school, receiving permission from the church, and attended, graduated, and secured the rank of colonel. It has been and is an honor to serve as a combat officer and as a military chaplain, where I might help our troops to appreciate and understand what Jesus Christ has done to make their lives acceptable to God and his way of life and living. Colonel and Chaplain Bob Moffat, you are a soldier, and always will be a soldier for God and country, setting the highest standards of duty, honor, and country. We shall all strive to follow close order behind you, where you have pointed the way. Thank you, sir, for your service.
All right.